Alright, so in terms of what we're going to be looking at in this week's weekly content, we're going to be going through a few things. And the first, as I mentioned in the previous video, is first of all getting your head around what do we mean by business strategy, and in particular, these key concepts of things like strategic competitiveness, the strategy itself, competitive advantage, above average returns, and the business strategy process. Now, if you sit there and none of that means anything to you now, don't worry, because by the end of this week, it certainly will. Explaining the business strategy process, I mentioned the process as being a key part of business strategy in the previous video, and we're certainly going to go through that now. We're going to look at the 21st century competitive landscape and how globalization and technological changes have shaped it. Looking at two contrasting models that will explain how firms may or may not earn what we call above average returns, defining things like your resources, capabilities, and core competencies, in particular focusing on the vision and mission of an organization and why they're important, and also the challenges that come with strategy today. Alright, first things first, what is strategy? Unfortunately, unlike our feline friend here, you can't simply read a book and be a complete strategy expert. It is a complicated thing, business strategy. When we talk about it within the context of this unit, we are talking about an integrated and coordinated set of commitments and actions designed to exploit core competencies and gain that key concept of a competitive advantage. It also can be looked at as basically a game plan that will hopefully help restore your firm's ability to earn profits. It represents an outline of how you would like as a business to achieve your goals and sets that route on how the goals and objectives of your firm may be achieved. And finally is also a demonstration of how you as a firm will differ from your competitors. As you can see here, a key definition offered by Michael Porter back in 1980. That name you'll be hearing a lot throughout the following 6 weeks and indeed throughout the rest of the semester. He said that strategies are particular configurations of the value chain which create a unique and valuable position involving a different set of objectives. These key concepts of things like objectives and value chains, you're going to become very familiar with them over the next few weeks. I've touched on it a couple of times now. The broad process that we look at when we discuss business strategy can be seen in diagrammatic form on this slide here. As we'll go over this week and the following 5 weeks as part of our fundamentals of business strategy, we're going to be looking at, first of all, creating a particular vision and mission and the core values of your organization, setting your strategic objectives, and then developing a strategy that will hopefully allow you and your firm to achieve those objectives and your goals. Putting that strategy into place is an additional challenge in itself, as is a commonly neglected area of the business strategy process, which involves actually monitoring and evaluating the performance of your strategy once you've actually put it into place and executed it. Without following that final step, you're not going to know how well or how poorly your firm is performing with regards to your chosen strategy. We've touched on this notion of competitive advantage and also above average returns already. And you can see, and we will point out over the coming few weeks, why this is such an important notion. When we talk about competitive advantage, we mean when a firm implements a strategy that creates superior value to both the customers and that its competitors are also unable to duplicate or find too costly to imitate. So it's when a firm can do something that other firms simply cannot, which provide it with a source of advantage over those competitors. It's essential to earning above average returns. Without competitive advantage, you will not be able to make sustained profits over an extended period of time. Above average returns are returns in excess of what an investor expects to earn from other investments with a similar amount of risk. So it's, as the name suggests, when you are creating profits that are above average compared to similar types of investments that an investor could make. So it is involving operating on another level, maybe not quite to the extent of our friend here on his bike compared to those poor other kids in the photo. But as our friend Jack Welch A very famous CEO up the top here says, if you don't have that competitive advantage, you may as well not bother competing, because it will not enable you, without that competitive advantage, to achieve those above average returns. The strategic vision. In order to establish your business strategy, you will need to establish exactly what the strategic vision of your firm is. Basically, it represents a picture of what a firm wants to be in the future and ultimately what it would like to achieve. When you create your firm, what type of an organization are you trying to create? It tends to be enduring, that is, sustained over an extended period of time, and is usually short and concise in its wording, which tends to make it easier to remember, not just for customers, but also for the employees and the people who work within the organization itself. So we've got some good examples here for you. BHP, a famous mining firm, have said that their strategic vision says our purpose is to create long-term value through the discovery, development and conversion of natural resources and provision of innovative customer and market-based solutions. So you can see in a single sentence there, BHP have outlined what they would like to represent as an organisation. McDonald's, another company that you may be slightly more familiar with, have said that our vision is to be the world's best quick service restaurant. That's a great vision because it's quite short. Everyone can remember that quite easily, and certainly those employees within McDonald's should be able to remember that and strive towards that. McDonald's are doing a fairly good job of achieving that, as you can see, based on our friend down the bottom, who literally called 911 after she found they had run out of McNuggets in her local store. This is not a joke, that actually happened. So whether they are or not the best quick service restaurant in the world, clearly to some people that vision is very much being achieved. A related notion to the strategic vision, and an often confused notion or concept, is a firm's strategic mission. A firm's strategic mission explains the business or businesses in which a firm intends to compete, and also which customers it actually intends to serve. So as a result of that, it tends to be based on the firm's strategic vision, but is clearly more practical, and it also tends to be more likely to change with new environmental conditions, where our strategic vision tends to be the same over an extended period of time. The factors in the environmental and external conditions might change, but what you would like to achieve as a firm tends to remain the same, whereas your mission, that is how you go about competing in the different markets and the people you intend to serve, will often change with those environmental conditions. An effective strategic mission will depict what a firm does at the present time in particular, and establish a firm's uniqueness. How is it different from its competitors? So again, looking at our friends at McDonald's, it involves being the best employer for all our people in each community around the world, and deliver operational excellence to our customers in each of our restaurants. So rather than that more broad, grand statement of being the best fast food restaurant we can be, which was that vision statement, the strategic mission is much more practical and explains how they are going to achieve that. And as it says here, focusing in particular on things like operational excellence. Maybe not through humiliation like our pet friends here have experienced. There are many challenges, as you can imagine, within business strategy today, and more than ever, firms are facing a wider range of issues which they are having to confront when developing and implementing that strategy. Conventional sources of competitive advantage, that is, those things which in the past may have provided above average returns, these days often no longer guarantee that same success. The dynamic and chaotic nature of change and competition that firms are facing today means that very rarely, in fact almost never, will a firm compete in a single country anymore. These days, if you have a website, you are pretty much an international firm. So that makes it, in itself, makes it much more complicated when developing your strategy. There's many more markets to consider as much as anything else. They tend to manage knowledge these days, rather than assets, the traditional assets, your machinery and so on. A lot of the time you'll hear firms today talking about the key assets and resources that they possess being the employees and their knowledge. and their skills that they represent and possess, these intangible knowledge and resources, which become particularly crucial as we will find over the coming few weeks. There tend to be fewer compromises and less of an acceptance of poor quality these days. Often in the past, you may have heard people say, oh, well, look, you get what you pay for, and so have been willing to pay less and acknowledge that that may get you a slightly lower quality product. These days, that is less of the case. These days, people often will still want to pay less, but expect the same quality that you would get, or a similar level of quality, when you are paying more. So that becomes more difficult for firms to deal with as well. We also see what we call these disruptive technologies or innovations. And basically these new technologies which literally reinvent or revolutionize a market or industry. Being ahead of the game and catching that wave and riding it before your competitors is becoming increasingly important rather. Finally, there are these changing features of the global economy in which the firms compete. So goods, services, people, skills and ideas now move very freely, very much freely, across geographic borders much more easily than they have in the past, which again adds to the dynamic nature of most firms' external environments.